bayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang magiliw, ewas ng silangalan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, kuya ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisigil, sa nagatang tutok sa simoy at sa langit ng pagaw, ay ginatang tula, kawin sa pagkayang minamahal, ang isang ng matawad ko'y tagumpay na naghihinig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pang ay di maghihinig. Luma ng araw ng walhagit pagsinta, mo'y langit sa piling mo. Ang hinigaya na pagkay mga amin, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the DTI Board of Investments Hyperscalers launch. A big shout out to our media partners joining us virtually. I'm Kathy Yang from PLDT and Smart. I shall be your host. This event aims to introduce a new growth engine for the Philippines, the hyperscaler market, and strengthen the collaboration between the public and private sector to make the Philippines the Asia-Pacific region's next digital destination. We are in the good company of our special guests. Please welcome Secretary Ramon Lopez of the Department of Trade and Industry, Senior Undersecretary Jesus Cristino Posadas of the Department of Energy, Jovi I. Hernandez, Senior Vice President and Head of PLDT and Smart Enterprise Business Groups and EPLDT President and CEO, and Raymond B. Ravelo, Chief Sustainability Officer of Meralco Group and CEO of Isakay. We will have lots of opportunity to engage our special guests in our Q&A portion, so make sure to key in those into the comment section on YouTube or text us. The Philippines is focusing on rapid industrialization and infrastructure development as vital economic drivers elevated by a make-it-work mindset, showcasing strength and adaptability even in times of adversity. For an overview of the Philippine economic outlook with focus on our digital economy and the country's new growth engine, the hyperscaler market, please welcome Trade and Industry Secretary Ramon Lopez.
Thank you, Kathy. Good afternoon. DICT Secretary Greg Honasan, DOE Undersecretary Jesus Posadas, to DTI Undersecretary Seferino Rodolfo and Undersecretary Rafaelita Aldaba, Mr. Jovi Hernandez, EPLDT President and CEO, Mr. Raymond Ravelo of Meralco Group and CEO of Isakay, to the key players in the telco and data center industry, our colleagues and friends at the Foreign Trade Service Corps and the Philippine Trade and Investment Centers, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you to witness what we could be a milestone leading to our country's economic breakthrough. Welcome to the launch of our campaign highlighting the Philippines as the next strategic hyperscaler hub in the Asia-Pacific region. After being widely recognized as the outsourcing capital of the world, this is the natural next step for the Philippines, as our country now has all the necessary elements in place to make this happen. First of all, we have a thriving digital economy and a good economic profile. The digital readiness of our enterprises are helping propel our economic growth even further. The Philippine economic growth accelerated in the second quarter of 2021 to 11.8% compared to a negative 17% in the same quarter of last year, 2020. This is the highest GDP growth recorded since the fourth quarter of 1988. Moreover, the industry will benefit from strong government support and a favorable regulatory environment. Hyperscalers can avail of incentives under the CREATE Act of SIPP, Strategic Investment Priorities Plan. President Rodrigo Roa Duterte has also announced that the Philippines is inviting more investments to expand e-commerce and facilitate new modes of interaction and exchange as we become an active participant in the global digital economy. We are promoting hyperscalers as the country's next growth engine in our Make It Happen in the Philippines campaign for a lot of reasons. Hyperscalers act as enabler of various industries and the backbone of digital native industries such as financial technology, fintech, and digital banking. Their increased presence will create a multiplier effect, especially with the potential increase in the demand for renewable energy and data center developers. As you know, the trend for hyperscalers is to source power from renewable clean energy. The investments of hyperscalers on tools and intellectual property will result in cheaper access to cloud technology, which will extend and enhance the customer's capabilities. Hyperscale platforms provide the ability to quickly and seamlessly handle immense volumes of activity and data. Their capability for integration with other systems make it cheaper for the customer to implement and integrate the platform. In addition, they create potential investment value in terms of generating foreign direct investments, improving internet connectivity, investment in IT infrastructure, manpower upskilling, and renewable energy. Indirectly, they will result in lower data costs for the country, cheaper cloud services, and improved customer experience for our e-commerce industry. I must mention also that there's a multiplier effect as far as the equipment, the materials, the domestic content, the local content that can lead us into as we establish more data centers in the country. Aside from the need for a lot of engineers, software engineers, and people who will run these data centers. The Philippines' digital landscape makes it an ideal setting for hyperscalers. According to the 2021 digital report, the Philippines remained the top country in social media and internet usage worldwide. E-commerce adoption in the Philippines grew from 70% in 2019 to 76% in 2020 and 80.2% in 2021. Our digital enterprises filled the void left by brick-and-mortar businesses affected by the community lockdowns. Online retail, delivery services, online entertainment, digital services, telehealth, work-from-home arrangements, digital payments, all of these helped us in the past year and continue to do so until now. The Philippines is currently the social media capital of the world, with 89 million active social media users. As of January this year, according to the Global Social Media Use Ranking, the Philippines ranked 6th in Facebook, 10th in YouTube, 11th in Twitter, and 18th in Instagram. Based on DTI's business name registration next generation system, the number of online businesses involved in retail trade jumped from 1,848 just in the first quarter of 2020 to 88,575 by the end of 2020. Presently, the total number of online business names registered for retail trade is around 109,648. Hyperscalers can provide these businesses with scalable applications and storage portfolio of services to meet the growing demand of transactions. The pandemic has forced us to maximize the use of the digital platform, which accelerated the growth of the data center market. The Philippines now ranks second overall among the Southeast Asian countries, with Manila having a compound annual growth rate of 14.2%, next to Hanoi, Vietnam's 14.5%. This poses a huge potential for the country, and according to the Frost and Sullivan research firm, the projected supply growth of data centers in 3 to 5 years for the Philippines is at 24%. In terms of regulatory environment and government support, the Philippines has laws that ensure data protection and well-defined data ownership, such as the Cybercrime Prevention Act of 2012. We also have the Corporate Recovery and Tax Incentives for Enterprises Act, or what we call the CREATE Law, which provides attractive incentives for both data center operators and hyperscalers. This law also features the government's flexibility in granting fiscal and non-fiscal incentives for high-value strategic investments. We have also created a central business portal for all business-related information and for faster transactions in availing of government permits and services, not to mention the overall digitalization efforts in all agencies, where according to DICT, a total of 206 agencies have active Information Systems Strategic Plans, or ISSPs, as of June of 2021. Artificial intelligence, or AI, is supported by Hyperscalers platform, which is part of the growth drivers of the Philippines as a digital market. Just recently, we have created the National Artificial Intelligence Roadmap, which will pave the way for the forthcoming establishment of the Philippines National Center for AI Research. Several other initiatives have been undertaken by the government to support the growth of the digital market, e-commerce, and industrialization, one of which is the Philippine E-commerce 2022 Roadmap, which aims to increase the contribution of e-commerce to the Philippines' GDP. Another plus factor for the Philippines is the fact that we have a rich talent pool of young professionals. We have the second highest population in Southeast Asia, a very young and tech-savvy population with a median age of 25.7 years old. We have a ready workforce of 49 million with an annual graduation rate of almost 800,000 yearly. The highest percentages of the graduates come from the engineering, IT, and science fields. We have high mobile phone connections at 152 million and 138% mobile penetration. This relates to the propensity to consume data and access services and content, which will be delivered by hyperscalers. We have 73.9 million internet users and the second highest in Southeast Asia, with an average of 10.5 hours of internet usage per day. The Philippines has a very promising business market that uses cloud-based technology. The Filipinos' widespread use of mobile streaming, social media networking, and the like is driving the demand for cloud services. The Philippines is also one of the fastest IT business process outsourcing, IT BPO markets in the region, with BPO companies using cloud-based services to support their operations. The Philippine cloud computing market is expected to grow to $3 billion by 2025. As far as infrastructure is concerned, the country has adapted to the 5G network with ongoing investments by telco companies. We have solid international connectivity, both outwards and within the country, with 16 international cable systems, subsea cable builds, 13 cable landing stations, and local rollout of 840,000 kilometers of fiber optic network. We host the presence of 9 major commercial data centers providers within 10 cities across the country. And these data centers possess an estimated 19,000 total rack capacity. In terms of energy requirements, we have identified companies that are sustainability conscious and which are primarily potential sources of co-investments in renewable energy projects. Later, we will see how the promotion of hyperscalers will also allow more public-private partnership. We will hear from DICT about the government's initiatives on digitalization and connectivity, and from the DOE about the government's special initiatives to enhance power rate competitiveness. We also have the support of telco and data center operators such as PLDT, Globe, Dito, and Converge, to name a few. We shall be hearing from PLDT later, and Meralco will likewise share with us their initiatives on renewable energy and sustainable business practices. With the continuous improvement on the country's economy, coupled by our relevant legislations, promising economic profile, and a strong government support on hyperscalers, we shall make this happen. Indeed, we will make it happen in the Philippines with a whole of society approach that is all of us working together to build back better in the post-pandemic tomorrow as envisioned by our President Rodrigo Roa Duterte. Maraming salamat po at mabuhay tayong lahat.
Thank you, Tekmon. It is indeed a natural next step, the next growth driver for the Philippines, the hyperscaler market. Well, join me now in the big reveal, the next strategic hyperscaler hub in Asia Pacific, the Philippines. Watch this.
The second largest and youngest population with a literacy rate among the highest in the world. Here, the mobile penetration is incomparable. Here, internet users spend the most time online, the longest across the globe. Here is the social media capital of the world. Here, people are digitally adept and early adopters of new innovations. Here, businesses have accelerated their digital transformation and emerged into e-industries. Amidst the vastness and diversity of the world, somewhere in the Asia Pacific, you will find the pearl of the Orient. Right here, the Philippines. Beyond its beaches and rich culture, here is Southeast Asia's second largest and youngest population with a literacy rate among the highest in the world. Here, the mobile penetration is incomparable. Here, internet users spend the most time online, the longest across the globe. Here is the social media capital of the world. Here, people are digitally adept and early adopters of new innovations. Here, businesses have accelerated their digital transformation and emerged into e-industries. This is all supported by world-class digital infrastructure, the Philippines' widest fiber optic network, an expandable network and points of presence, and the largest data center network in the country. Here, across its more than 7,000 islands, making it the ideal digital market destination. Discover it here, only here, the Philippines.
And there you have it, the Philippines, the next hyperscalers hub of the Asia Pacific. Improving the business climate by way of digitalization and connectivity support the entry of hyperscalers into the Philippines. Here with us to share key initiatives in advancing the digital environment that will enable hyperscalers, please welcome Secretary Gringo Honasan of the Department of Information and Communications Technology.
To our friends and colleagues in public service, our private sector partners, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. The Department of Information and Communications Technology expresses its utmost commitment to improving telecommunications and internet service in the country to create a more conducive and thriving business environment. This will allow our investors and telecommunications companies, or telcos, to take bold steps in providing internet connectivity and improving the quality of ICT services in the Philippines. In view of this, your department spearheaded several initiatives to assist the telco industry in improving connectivity services in the country to meet the surge in demand brought about by the new normal. We released the Common Tower Policy, which seeks to enhance wireless network coverage and improve the quality and affordability of ICT services in the country, particularly in underserved and unserved regions. The policy promotes sharing of passive ICT infrastructure, or towers, that would in turn reduce capital expenditure for telcos, allowing them to focus on expanding their coverage and improving the quality of their service. The policy is expected to accelerate ICT infrastructure development moving forward. We are also closely working with the Anti-Red Tape Authority, or ARTA, and in collaboration with other government agencies to reduce the shared tower permit requirements in compliance with Republic Act 11032, or the Ease of Doing Business and Efficient Government Service Delivery Act of 2018, that mandates streamlined procedures of government services. With the release of the Common Tower Policy and the issuance of the Joint Memorandum Circular JMC number 1 series of 2020, the timeline for the process of constructing common towers was shortened to the target period of 16 days compared to the original 214 days. It also brought down the number of permits needed from 30 to 8 and of documentary requirements from 86 to 35. Due to said policies and owing to President Rodrigo Duterte's call for the telecommunications industry to step up its services, the country saw significant improvements in internet speed since July 2016. In July 2021, the country recorded a 741.34% increase in its average fixed broadband internet speed and a 341.40% in mobile internet speed since July 2016, according to data from Ookla Speed Test Global Index. Additionally, through the Department Circular number 010 series of 2020, your DICT issued the Philippine government's Cloud First policy. The policy promotes the use of cloud computing technology to reduce costs, increase employee productivity, and develop excellent citizen online services. Through this policy, we hope to foster better and more efficient interagency collaboration that will surely benefit our citizens. Again, the Department of Information and Communications Technology expresses its full support to this initiative and the Department of Trade and Industry. We affirm our commitment to steadily upgrade the nation's digital infrastructure to not only address new normal requirements, but also to help stimulate economic activity and improve the nation's participation in the global digital economy. Thank you and mabuhay.
Thank you, Secretary Honasan. Hyperscalers need a lot of energy, and often the most critical factor when considering to build hyperscale facilities is the cost and efficiency of power usage. The Department of Energy stands ready to host renewable energy source power requirements for hyperscalers. Standing in for Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi, with us to share the country's readiness to host renewable energy source power requirements for hyperscalers, providing competitive power costs, incentives, and business facilitation, please welcome Energy Senior Undersecretary Jesus Cristino Posadas.
Thank you, Kathy. Please allow me to deliver Secretary Alfonso G. Cusi's message on this media launch of the Philippines, the next hyperscaler hub in Asia Pacific. Secretary Mon Lopez, Secretary Greg Honasan, DTI Yusex Seferino Rodolfo, and Rafaelita Aldaba, Sirs Manny Pangilinan, Al Panlilio, Joey Hernandez, Nicole Inchausti, Attorney Ray Espinosa, Raymond Ravelo, our private sector partners, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to all. The Philippines is a middle-income and developing nation, and its prevailing true costs of power have significantly weakened our ability to industrialize at a more rapid pace. Hence, the Philippines Department of Energy has been relentless in revolutionizing the country's energy landscape to transform the Philippines into a haven for energy investments. We have been proactively pursuing policies and programs that will help us attain energy security and socioeconomic growth against the backdrop of a sustainable, competitive energy future for the coming generations. This is why, despite current challenges, we remain highly optimistic and get excited whenever there are opportunities, such as this afternoon's event, to invite investors to do business in the Philippines. Energy independence and self-sufficiency are the core aspects of building a more efficient, sustainable, and competitive power system. Hence, the DOE continues to promote and facilitate the exploration, development, commercialization, and utilization of indigenous renewable energy resources to reduce our dependence on the fuel imports and create more jobs for Filipinos. Between 2009 to 2020, we saw the addition of about 2,339 megawatts RE capacity installations, which translate to estimated total investments of 221.35 billion pesos. In 2020, renewable energy share in the total capacity mix is at 29% and 21% in the total generation mix. As of May 2021, there is a total of 928 awarded RE contracts. The total potential capacity of about 30 gigawatts. Indigenous energy resources and private sector investment are central in achieving the country's RE targets and vision. Hence, the DOE is continuously innovating strategies RE resources into RE facilities. The goal is to achieve a 35% RE share in the power generation mix by 2030 and at least 50% by 2040. With the National Renewable Energy Program, NREP 2020 to 2040, as the blueprint. Towards this end, in October 2020, we declared a moratorium on the endorsement of new greenfield coal-fired power plants, signaling our shift towards establishing a more flexible power mix one that would help build a system that is resilient to structural demand changes and able to accommodate new, cleaner, and indigenous technological innovations. We likewise allowed the full participation of foreign firms in large-scale geothermal projects, which have initial investment capitalization of about US $50 million through financial and technical assistance agreements. Biomass projects, including waste-to-energy, are likewise open to 100% foreign ownership. Since the implementation of the Philippine Renewable Energy Act of 2008, interest in RE has steadily grown, especially with the department establishing RE market development support mechanisms, both mandatory and voluntary. Among these are renewable energy portfolio standards requires mandated participants such as distribution utilities and other load-serving entities to source a portion of RE generation in their respective supply portfolio from eligible RE facilities. Next is the Green Energy Option Program, or GEOP, where electricity end users with demand of 100 kilowatts or more are given the choice to source their power from RE resources through qualified RE suppliers. With the Energy Regulatory Commission's recent issuance of the GEOP regulatory framework, more and more RE advocates are expressing the support to the program, which has been fueling the transition towards inclusive economic recovery. Third, the net metering program empowers electricity and end users to produce and consume their own RE facilities that do not exceed 100 kilowatts. As of July 31, 2020, total capacity from this program reached 37 megawatts. With the recent policy issuance, we will expand net metering in off-grid areas. We're currently developing the net metering guidebook that aims to serve as a one-stop shop for all net metering stakeholders. Lastly, our Green Energy Auction Policy, or GEAP, will provide additional market options for RE developers and generators, promoting the competitive setting of rates for the RE supply in our country. We're looking at 2,000 megawatts of RE capacities for our initial auction this year. These developments are paving the way for the evolution of the renewable energy space in the country. In fact, just this April, a report from the HSBC Global Research hailed the Philippines as the second best investment for renewables in Southeast Asia. Because of our attractive regulatory environment and highly liberalized active spot market. The report also projected the Philippines will emerge as one of the cheapest sources of power, as the levelized cost of energy are estimated to decrease by 16% for solar and 22% for onshore wind by year 2025. The DOE will continue to find even more ways to boost the attractiveness of the country's RE sector so we may support various industries as we seek to build back better in the new normal and beyond. The prime example is today's launch of the Philippines as the new data center in Asia. At this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, the DOE is one with the DTI in inviting investors listening to us here today, like the hyperscalers of the world. Let's do business. Invest in the Philippines, your gateway to Asia Pacific region. Thank you very much. Stay safe and mabuhay.
Salamat. Thank you, Yusek. Yes, indeed, the ramping up of renewable energy plays a key role in developing the hyperscaler market here in the Philippines. Strong collaboration between the public and private sector can only transform the Philippines into the region's next digital destination. With us now on taking digital infrastructure to the next level, sharing insights on the country's readiness to host data centers and provide international and domestic connectivity, Please welcome Jovi Hernandez, Senior Vice President and Head of PLDT and Smart Enterprise Business Groups and EPLDT President and CEO.
DTI Secretary Ramon Lopez, the ICT Secretary Gringo Honasan, DOE USEC Jesus Posadas, BOI USEC Perry Rodolfo, members of the Board of Investments, to my MVP group colleagues, Mr. Raymond Ravelo and Ms. Kathy Yang, to everyone present here today. And just in case we have viewers joining us online globally, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. The PLDT Group is thankful and thrilled to take part in this private-public sector collaboration to prime the Philippines as the next strategic hyperscaler hub in Asia. The PLDT Group understands that IT and telecommunications play a critical role in stimulating the growth of the modern economy and in developing a strong digital ecosystem, and we are always ready to support and push the country's digital and economic agenda. We are a technology enabler after all, and we recognize our obligation to ensure that the Philippines is able to keep up competitively within the region in our quest to help attract the right investments to the country. As the Philippines' only fully integrated telco, the PLDT Group is making an unbreakable commitment to continue investing in the most advanced technologies to enhance our digital infrastructure and comply to the evolving demands of the market across individuals, homes, and enterprises, including the emerging industries that we are inviting to set up their operations in the Philippines, such as business process outsourcing and recently, the global hyperscalers. Robust hyperconnectivity capacities with stringent resiliency requirements are at the core of what they require and seek in geographies that they expand in. Such is the underlying reason why the PLDT Group continues to invest on upgrading network capacity and building network diversity both domestically and internationally. We continue to build our own international submarine cable systems in anticipation of the exponential growth of Philippines' terminating data traffic, given the accelerated rate of digital transformation across markets we serve, and the growing hyperscaler ramp-up in this side of the world. Testament to this, we are aiming to further expand our coverage through 3 new cable system investments, namely Jupiter Cable, Asia Direct Cable, and Apricot. The domestic network infrastructure also has to keep pace to ensure that we deliver fast and reliably up to the last mile as we reach out to deliver the best possible experience to more Filipino consumers and businesses across the entire archipelago. For this, we have also fast-tracked the rollout of our extensive fiber infrastructure, and we will continue to do so aggressively in the coming months and years. And then, of course, there is wireless. The wireless connectivity that we deliver through SMART remains a vital enabler in bringing access to information and content across more than 70 million Filipinos and bridging the digital divide in the country. As our digital economy continues to evolve, we remain steadfast in revolutionizing 5G to elevate digital experiences in the country. Lastly, on the data center infrastructure side, our ICT arm EPLDT continues to upgrade and transform its network of 10 world-class data center facilities to better serve the hyperscaler market. To cater to their immense power requirements, our data center network, Vitro, is gearing up its capacity through technological innovations and sustainable operations. With a full potential capacity of over 9,000 racks and consolidated 26 megawatts of power, Vitro's operations and design ensures our readiness to deliver on hyperscalers' short and long-term requirements with utmost scalability. In the midst of the ongoing digital revolution, the PLDT Group is committed to take the Philippines' digital infrastructure to the next level. This will always be our humble contribution as we support the country's thrust for economic growth and greater prosperity. So to capitalize on the opportunity of hyperscalers, we need hyper-collaboration. The hyper-collaboration that we are all witnessing today between key private and public sector entities will further bolster and continue to deliver and drive the country's digital agenda to greater heights. We believe that we are more than ready to open our country as the next destination for hyperscalers, and that the future looks very bright, and we mutually thrive in the digital landscape that we will collectively build. Thank you very much, and again, we're very excited to work with everybody. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Jovi. And that unbreakable commitment extends to the hyper-collaboration between the public and the private sectors. And investors are starting to notice the planned investments in new data center operation in the Philippines are taking shape. When one reads through sustainability reports of some of the biggest tech companies in the world, hyperscalers are accomplishing some of the most commendable sustainability-related goals, from zero carbon power to net zero green gas house emissions by 2030. With us now to let us in on how Meralco can support the Philippines' growth momentum through green power and sustainable practices, please welcome Meralco Group's Chief Sustainability Officer and CEO of Sakai, Raymond Ravelo.
Thank you very much, Kathy, for the introduction. Secretary Mon Lopez, Secretary Gringo Honasan, Senior Undersecretary Jess Posadas, Undersecretary Perry Rodolfo, Undersecretary Fital Daba, to my colleague, Mr. Jovi Hernandez, to our distinguished guests, to our media partners, and to everyone joining us today, magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Thank you to the Department of Trade and Industry, especially our Philippine Board of Investments, for inviting us in Meralco to be part of this very, very important event. On behalf of our Meralco Chairman, Manuel B. Pangilinan, and our President and CEO, Attorney Ray C. Espinosa, it is my distinct pleasure and privilege to be here today to share with you our sustainability agenda and the steps, the programs we have taken and continue to drive to support our government's thrust, not only for economic growth, but in a sense, more importantly, for sustainable prosperity. With the identification and installation of the hyperscalers industry as one of our country's newest and most strategic growth sectors, we fully support the move to make the Philippines a regional center, a regional leader in this space. We in Meralco recognize the role we play to spur and support the growth of hyperscalers by delivering not only reliable and high-quality energy, but also, as we say, earth-friendly power. In light of this, please allow me to very briefly share with you our sustainability journey and agenda as a company. 2019 marked the year we in Meralco placed sustainability at the top of our corporate agenda and at the core of our strategy and operations as a company. Now, following the lead of MVP and RCE, we crafted our very own sustainability agenda, which we call Powering the Good Life. And Powering the Good Life, as you will see very shortly, is marked by a distinctive focus on 4 areas, 4 pillars, 4 Ps. First, power. Here we exert supreme effort to provide cost-competitive, accessible, reliable, and clean energy to all we serve. Next, planet. Here we capture essentially our initiatives to help protect and preserve our one and only home, of course, by reducing our greenhouse gas emissions and by minimizing our waste. Third, people. We embed and nurture sustainability deep within our organizations while ensuring the holistic well-being of our employees in a safe, diverse, and inclusive workplace. And then finally, and most importantly, underpinning all of these is the thrust for prosperity, or the drive to help create better lives for all, ensuring that no one is left behind. Now, if I may dive deep into our power pillar, which indeed is a hyperscaler priority, we have committed to embarking on what we call a just, orderly, and affordable transition to clean energy beginning today. We in Meralco are in full support of the Department of Energy's renewable portfolio standards, and as such, we have committed to securing 1,500 megawatts of our power requirements from renewable energy sources in the next 5 years. We are likewise accelerating our renewable energy build-out plan. As such, Meralco Power Gen Corporation, through its renewable energy arm, M-Green, will build up to 1,500 megawatts of clean energy capacity in the next 5 to 7 years. In fact, M-Green's maiden project, Bulacan Sol, a 50-megawatt solar farm just north of Metro Manila in San Miguel, Bulacan, commissioned and commenced operations in May of this year. In addition, we have also started the construction of Global Business Power's first solar power plant, a 115-megawatt peak facility in the province of Rizal, which is expected to go online next year, 2022. To end, we in Meralco are committed to working shoulder to shoulder with our government, our colleagues in the MVP group of companies, and fellow stakeholders in the Philippine energy sector and business community as we all do our part to transforming our country into a regional hyperscaler powerhouse. Through this and a host of other initiatives, we hope to bring enduring, meaningful progress to our country. And as we say in Meralco, as we continue powering the good life for all today and for generations to come. So muli, maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Raymond, and for sharing the 4 pillars in capturing that reliable, high quality, and earth-friendly energy for the hyperscalers. Again, thank you to all our speakers. Now, it's time to hear from you, our media partners. So please key in your questions in the comment box on YouTube, or if unable to, text us at 0920-981-4742. 0920-981-4742. And do make sure that you let us know which organization you're affiliated with and who you'd like to hear from. Before we proceed, let's welcome back all our speakers on screen. And to add to our esteemed panel, let us all welcome Vice Chairman and Managing Head of the Board of Investments Under Secretary Seferino Peri Rodolfo and DTI Undersecretary Fita Aldaba. All right, let's get started. And the first question is for SecMon. What are the competitive advantages of the Philippines as it is poised to be the next hyperscalers hub in APAC? SecMon.
Hello. Yeah, thank you, Kari. I mentioned earlier, but first and foremost, I think there is already a much growing demand, fast growing demand coming from hyperscalers. The fact that the country has been credited for ranking high in many of the usage of internet, in terms of the usage of data. With that demand, it calls for a much bigger infrastructure that can really help also lower down the cost. Of course, we have the infrastructure, the resources, the people that would also be necessary in growing this particular sector. We mentioned earlier the kind of STEM graduates that we are churning out year in, year out, about 800,000 of graduates, and the bulk of which would be coming from the science, technology, engineering, math kind of graduates. Relatively young population, digital friendly, and they're very familiar with technology, and of course all the infrastructure that we've been talking about in the different messages earlier from the speakers, and of course the potential from renewable energy. So these are comparative advantage that we certainly have that hopefully can attract more of the buildup of data centers for use by the hyperscalers.
Yeah, comparative advantages, SecMon, for potential investment, which leads us to Yusek Perry. Do we have target global hyperscaler companies that we plan to attract to invest in the Philippines? Yusek Perry.
Yes. Thank you very much for that question, Kathy. Yes, indeed. We are actually targeting hyperscalers, in particular those who are very conscious in reducing their carbon footprint and also our potential source of co-investments in renewable energy. Currently, we are in discussions with hyperscalers from US and from China. If I may just mention some familiar names, these include Microsoft Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, Alibaba Cloud, and so on and so forth, including what we could say as the tier 2 hyperscalers, or those who can come in here to co-locate with our providers of data center services, including PLDT. We have now Globe, Converge, Dito, and other telco companies. This include, when I talk about somehow the tier 2 hyperscalers, would include Linode, IBM Cloud, Oracle, and others. Thank you, Kathy.
That's a lot to begin with. Thank you, Yusek Perry. This one is from Mirna Velasco of Manila Bulletin. What are the business synergies and technology convergence needed between energy firms and telco companies like Smart and PLDT? For Jovi.
Hi, thanks again, Kathy. I just mentioned that in terms of us capitalizing on the hyperscaler opportunity, there needs to be hyper collaboration. And we're seeing exactly that between PLDT and Meralco today. I'll give an example, our collaboration with them for power design and build rectification in our data centers. These adjustments are needed to cater to hyperscaler requirements such as multiple grid terminations for redundancy, and we also need to work hand in hand with the energy sector to ensure that we are able to support the RE thrusts of hyperscalers. If you take a look at the other countries, I mean, Singapore, for example, was one of the largest destinations for hyperscalers, right? And I think it's common knowledge now that Singapore has reached its moratorium in terms of carbon footprint. So the Philippines is now really becoming a very interesting area for all of these global hyperscalers, whether tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3, as long as we're able to put together a collaboration framework. So we will not only be able to provide them global class data centers, we have to augment that with the world-class connectivity through our cable systems and the broadband infrastructure as well as wireless. And, you know, the presence of stable power and the renewable sources also is going to be a very critical factor for us to make the Philippines really a destination for hyperscalers. So this is more than just a private sector initiative. This is, to us, it's more than PLDT Group. This is really about the country, about the Philippines. And I think when we work together as one team, similar to the way we did BPO in the past, from zero, I recall us working also with government, and we have become the #1 BPO destination in the world. And we believe that if we did it before, I think we can do it again for the hyperscaler market.
Thank you, Jovi. Well, let me pick up on stable power and renewable energy. There is a question on sustainability here. What other sustainability initiatives have you launched across the 4 pillars? This one is for Raymond. The 4 pillars for Meralco.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question, Kathy. And you know, as you probably noticed in the way I framed the sustainability agenda of Meralco, it's very comprehensive in that you know, while you know, environmentalism, the planet is a big part of our agenda, we also cover a number of other bases such as power, people, and prosperity. You know, under power, obviously, you know, our drive is to deliver energy for all, always. And that is core to our Meralco electrification program, of which, you know, our target is to ensure 100% electrification of our service area across all the households and businesses that we serve. In addition, we've also launched a number of initiatives to reduce our own carbon footprint and ideally inform, inspire, and influence our other stakeholders to do so. Very recently, we implemented a green mobility program where we are looking to effectively transition all our vehicle fleets, or a big part of it, to electric. And Secretary Mon is very familiar with vehicle electrification as a big industry going forward. And so, you know, beginning this year, we are electrifying virtually all our vehicles in the Metro Manila Business Center space. In addition, one thing that I'd also like to highlight is, even with our own distribution assets within Meralco, we are now using plant-based or natural ester oil, which allows these very important distribution assets to become, you know, 99% biodegradable and recyclable. So through a lot of these initiatives, we are able to embed sustainability not only in our internal operations, but, you know, through our dealings with our other stakeholders, customers, suppliers alike. We also try our best to influence and inspire them to adopt sustainability agenda of their own.
Thank you, Raymond. Let's carry on that thread of clean energy as part of the transition to clean energy. And this question is for USEC Jess. What other technologies is the Department of Energy looking at in the future?
Well, actually, Kathy, we're looking at the other low carbon technologies or no carbon technology, like for example, hydrogen. That's but of course we're looking at leapfrogging from the position of Brunei and maybe Indonesia, that will start maybe from what you call blue hydrogen. We can actually leapfrog towards immediately green hydrogen. When you say green hydrogen, we're talking about hydrogen that's produced from RE. So that's one technology we're looking at. Well, of course, the other one is really energy efficiency, because really energy efficiency is really the first fuel that you have to look at before you start looking at the supply side. So that's the basic thing as far as energy efficiency is concerned. So we're also looking on the demand side, things like the technology related to demand response, because that's also the other one where, for example, you address the peak demand maybe during the day, which is really very much aligned to solar PV. So that way you can address the peak demand by having RE installed. Of course, the other way is moving it towards the evening. That is demand response by shaving the peak, by moving the demand into the evening where there is really a surplus of supply. So those are types of technologies.
All right, thank you, Yusek. A lot to choose from.
It's,
in fact,
of course, the topic that we're talking about will empower both renewable energy as well as the energy efficiency. Thank you.
Thank you, Yusek Jess. Here is a question from Roy Canivel of Inquirer. Anyone from DTI can answer. Where are we in the discussions with US and Chinese hyperscalers? Are there already companies that expressed interest? Or if not, what are their reservations?
Let me take that first, Cathy, and then pass it on to my colleagues. First of all, since this is a new industry, we're really it ranged from exploratory to advanced. I'm pretty sure that within this year we could have at least one Chinese hyperscaler, at least one US hyperscaler. In terms of they're really looking at the green energy market here as a main driver, and then also looking at the data privacy regulatory framework for the Philippines. Right now, let me just say, within this year, we could have at least 2 hyperscaler investors coming in. Thank you.
Thank you, Yusek Perry. Anyone else want to add to that from DTI? Sekmon, Yusek Pita? I've got one for Yusek Pita. Several initiatives were undertaken by the Philippine government to support the growth of the digital market and startups, particularly the crafting of the AI roadmap and implementation of the Startup Development Program. How would these help in attracting and spurring the growth of hyperscalers in the country? Yusek Pita.
Yeah, thank you, Cathy. Well, let me just initially say that the pandemic has actually forced many enterprises, regardless of size, to digitalize their operations, pursue automation, and enter e-commerce. And this rapid shift to digital platforms will require robust, collaborative, and data-conducive IT architecture that hyperscalers can provide. And even according to the research done by Gartner, 94% of workloads will be processed in the cloud by 2021. And so with the National AI Roadmap, our goal is really to position the Philippines as an AI center of excellence and a big data processing and analytics hub. It focuses on building a robust digital connectivity and data infrastructure, nurturing data and cloud professionals, accelerating AI, R&D investments, and institutionalizing data-related regulations and cybersecurity measures, which are all critical in developing the data and cloud ecosystem in the country. So there will be a national AI governance framework that will define the guiding principles on data privacy, accountability, safety, security, professional responsibility, transparency, fairness, and the promotion of human values, among others. And this is expected to provide a clearer, enforceable, and rules-based governance on data and AI in the Philippines, which will help spur hyperscalers in the country. And the other initiative that I would also want to mention is our startup development roadmap, wherein we expect the growth of more digital and tech-enabled startups. This will then naturally attract more hyperscalers to co-locate in the Philippines, given the growth of expected digital transactions that needs to be supported. I already mentioned the particular finding from Gartner, and hyperscalers would thus be crucial in supporting the growth and development and digital transformation of all enterprises in the country. Large, micro, small, and medium enterprises would all be supported.
Thank you, Yusek Fita. You know, you just underscored the importance of that hyper-collaborative nature of setting up a hyperscaler market here in the Philippines. I wanted to go back to Jovi here. This is a question about how it really works. How do hyperscalers make use of these digital infrastructure, the data center, to the submarine cable system, to 5G?
Thanks, Kathy. Yeah, again, data centers, subsea cables, and 5G or broadband are just some of the infrastructure requirements of these hyperscalers, right? First of all, they need a resilient data center to house their network and cloud compute equipment and make sure that their data are always up and running. Meanwhile, the data center should be connected to the major subsea cables and cable landing stations in the Philippines, because this will serve as their highway to the rest of the world. Connecting their co-located equipment in our data centers is like a deployment that they have across the globe, right? And we're looking at the Philippines as one of their deployments. And lastly, hyperscalers also need a wide and reliable broadband coverage so that their end users can actually access their services that is made through our fiber network or 5G technology. So these hyperscalers actually operate in an ecosystem of interconnected and interdependent digital infrastructures, if I could use that term, in order for them to best service the Philippine market. So to give the media an indication, without naming names, the Philippines is not foreign to these guys. Actually, majority of them are already here in the country. Just to be very specific, when we say hyperscaler, so they've seen the Philippines, they're locally cached here in the Philippines. Now that they're seeing the potential, we want them to have a bigger footprint in their global network. We don't want the Philippines to be just a small deployment for these global hyperscalers. And I think Secretary Mon is correct. And when you take a look at what the Philippines has, even when you take a look at the people, I mean, our people, the Filipino is digitally savvy. I think they've adapted to a lot of digital technologies, even because of COVID, right? Everybody's doing a lot of digital payments. So these global hyperscalers have seen that firsthand, and they know that there's a big potential for the Philippines. So that's what we're trying to do. If you put them all together, can these guys now have a bigger footprint in the Philippines, making the Philippines a bigger footprint in their global network? So that's the objective.
Thank you, Jovi, and that is the goal, which leads us to SecMon as we wrap up this conversation. What's in it for the Philippines? What is the value add, SecMon? Will hyperscalers in the country benefit the Filipino people?
Well, certainly, Kathy. We mentioned earlier that what we can see here is that, as mentioned by Jovi, hyperscalers have a fairly good assessment of the immense potential increasing their digital footprint here in the country. As mentioned earlier, the Philippines ranked number 6 in Facebook, 10th in YouTube, 11th in Twitter, 18th in Instagram. I mean, we're basically a digital network savvy Philippines, a country, no? And that in a way will tell them that, well, to lower their cost of operation might be good to improve that digital infrastructure network that they have. So data centers, the use of other resources. I mentioned the manpower resources. We have the skills, educated, young people, technology educated, high science, technology, engineering, math type of graduates. So we see a very strong support system, and the potential is still there. As you know, in other countries, I think they've reached already the sort of the maximum saturation point, and they're really looking at, I mean, new markets like Philippines, where to locate, let's say, their data centers. A lot of, I mean, big potential for the Philippines to host many of these data centers and digital infrastructure that we mentioned. The cable landing stations, the fiber optic network that I mentioned earlier in the message, the 5G network, they're all in a way an ecosystem that's already waiting to be maximized. All you need to do is build some more of the infrastructure so you can really maximize the efficiency of the ecosystem. And what is it? What's in it for Philippines? Of course, the way we look at it, as they probably would realize that with that digital infrastructure and data centers and all these things that I mentioned as part of infrastructure, they will support, which is, you know, a growing sector, still a growing, robust sector like IT BPM. I mean, during the pandemic, this is one sector that did not stop hiring. They continued to hire, they continued to grow. They posted 2%, and they may go up to 5% growth for the year. A lot of other industries, especially the AI, which has a big potential, as explained earlier, also supported in the answer earlier of Undersecretary Aldaba, and our plans for AI, and that to us could be the next industry service winner next to the BPO. I mean, AI service research that is AI based, that will be helping micro SMEs, not only the big companies. We will democratize AI, not only for big companies, we'll make it available for SMEs. I mean, this would really lead to a greater demand for these kinds of services, and of course, the infrastructure that should back it up. And what would be the benefit? Of course, this will create jobs. That is the people that I mentioned. I mean, the educated workforce, lowering the cost also of all this digital infrastructure as we build more facilities here, lowering cost of the cloud cost, and making them really as enablers to all these downstream sectors, the hyperscalers that will hopefully be increasing their operation here, recognizing that Philippines is a huge market for them. So all this will tie up with that, strengthening of that ecosystem that will really put the Philippines really as in the map of all these hyperscalers.
It is indeed a natural next step, Sec1, for everybody to discover that the Philippines is waiting to be the next hyperscaler hub in the Asia Pacific. That wraps up our Q&A. You've been a great bunch. Thank you so much to our media friends who joined us virtually. My thanks to you all and to all our media speakers. Before we go, could our special guests indulge us for a moment for a couple of snaps? My colleagues, Stefan Bien, will take us through our virtual photo session. So Bien, take it away.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cathy. Before we proceed, may I ask Yusek Posadas, all right, there. So to all our heads and partners, kindly look directly at the camera and smile. Please hold your smiles. Ready? In 3, 2, 1. All right. Now, still looking directly at the camera, kindly do the number 1 sign with your right hand. Please make sure your index finger is seen on screen. Yusek Aldaba, can you kindly do the number 1 sign, please? All right, there. All right, so please hold your smiles, everyone. In 3, 2, 1. All right, last, for the waving GIF, please wave at your cameras. Look directly at the camera and smile for 5 seconds. Please hold your smiles. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. That's it. Back to you, Miss Cathy.
Thank you, Bian, and a fine farewell indeed with a waving of the hand. Thank you all for joining us at the Hyperscalers Media launch here. Joining you virtually from Makati, I'm Cathy Yang from PLDT and Smart. Wishing you all a great day and a great week ahead. Be safe and be well, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Amidst the vastness and diversity of the world, somewhere in the Asia Pacific, you will find the pearl of the Orient. Right here, the Philippines. Beyond its beaches and rich culture, here is Southeast Asia's second largest and youngest population with a literacy rate among the highest in the world. Here, the mobile penetration is incomparable. Here, internet users spend the most time online, the longest across the globe. Here is the social media capital of the world. Here, people are digitally adept and early adopters of new innovations. Here, businesses have accelerated their digital transformation and emerged into e-industries. This is all supported by world-class digital infrastructure, the Philippines' widest fiber optic network, an expansive submarine cable network and points of presence, and the largest data center network in the country. Here, across its more than 7,000 islands, making it the ideal digital market destination. Discover it here, only here, the Philippines.